Welcome to What the SaaS. I'm your host, Shaheem Alam, co-founder of FiveRings Marketing. On this show, I interview SaaS and tech founders in North America who are succeeding in their industry and provide them with the space to share their product and professional journey. Learn more from founders who are leaving a mark through innovation. Hey everyone, today on our show, we have Sushant, Shankar, and Rajesh, both founders of Healthpals. Now, Healthpals is a medical AI platform built to save lives and money through preventative insights for life sciences and payers. Sushant has an incredible technical background in the world of data, while Raj is a Stanford cardiologist. Super excited to have you guys here. How are you doing?
Doing great, Shaheem. How are you?
Doing great. Thanks for inviting us.
Doing good. Yeah, of course. No, super happy to have you here. Now, I know you're doing a lot of great work today, and Healthpals definitely has a great vision for the future, but how did it all start?
Yeah, so we take turns telling the story. So Raj, I think it's your turn.
Man, so I am a cardiologist. I am not an engineer. And I was inspired to build Healthpals, and we'll tell you maybe more about that later in the podcast. However, I needed help, and I didn't know a lot of people in the engineering and sort of product world. And we met through a online matchmaking site for founders called, at that time, foundersdating.com, which is very embarrassing. And
no way.
you see why we have to take turns, right?
I've never heard of that. That's amazing. Yeah. Go on.
So it basically matched what you were looking for in a founder for your company, and it worked obviously for us. And what we found later, we were talking to an investor at a prominent VC firm who we had to also relay the story somewhat sheepishly. And she told us during that meeting that, oh, we invested in that company, foundersdating.com. They've changed the name since then, but at least we knew they had a legitimate VC behind them. So we felt a little bit better about it.
Yeah, I've never heard of that. That's nuts. That more people should know about that, because I hear people looking for technical founders all the time.
Well, we actually have an eHarmony podcast right after this. So I think we're getting the word out there.
That's hilarious. All right, cool. So that's how you guys met. Sushant, do you have a different version of the same story, or?
No. No, I think I'm a data scientist engineer by training. So I was looking to get into the healthcare field. I did some graduate work in computational bio, but I was really looking to make a commercial business out of something. I needed someone who had domain expertise in an idea or set of ideas. So yeah, it's great to connect with Raj there, and it's been a great journey.
Awesome. So, doctor meets data scientist. Why Healthpals? Why? Well, I guess, analytics is inherent to it, but I guess, Raj, why were you looking to make an analytics platform?
It's really through my clinical work at Stanford. So I have always been interested in predicting and preventing disease. In fact, prior to Stanford, I had done PhD work in molecular pharmacology, studying drug development and design, and was doing molecular imaging work at Stanford to predict injury in the heart as a cardiologist in my research. And what I really missed was a patient application of that. And I actually started my own preventive clinic at Stanford that focuses on reducing heart disease in a very high risk population of patients. But what I found when I was looking at those patients, I felt like we were doing a great job and we should digitize this and make an app for these very high risk patients. But in fact, it wasn't the high risk features that were the problem. It was the very low hanging fruit of medical guidelines for risk factors we know how to treat: diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol. We were doing a terrible job, and patients were coming into our clinic, and half the time we were starting medications they should have been on for years to manage those conditions. And those are things that we are very sure work in terms of improving outcomes and saving lives. And yet we fail as a medical community in doing this over half the time. And this was known by the Rand Corporation and others. And I felt like, okay, instead of digitizing this very high risk niche population of patients, let's do something for the broader global community of care gaps in the medical management of risk factors for other conditions. It doesn't have to be heart disease. There are guidelines, medical society guidelines for virtually every specialty. And this is a problem in every specialty. So a platform that was much more robust than what I had originally envisioned was something that really emerged from that observation. And I was very lucky to meet Sushant to help me build it.
Awesome. So in those early days, how did you go about customer discovery, right? Like you realized that there was a problem, you realized that there was a gap, but did you speak to others? Like, how did you really kind of validate that idea that, hey, you know what, this is a big problem that a lot of people care about, that people will pay to solve, so that you can actually build a business around?
Yeah, Shahima, it's a really good question. I can maybe go first, and Raj, feel free to add. I think the customer discovery journey took us several years, probably around 4+ years. And largely it's because the platform we built,
Wow,
it's a good and bad thing. It's a platform and something that can be generalized and applicable to many stakeholders in healthcare. And I come from other industries, ad tech, e-commerce, this kind of things. And here finding the right market within that industry itself took a while. And also we realized that to really do data science, we had to go back and step back and first find the right data. And so find enough data and the right type of data and the right partners to really scale the solution. So there was a lot of groundwork to get to the point where we knew, okay, this is the market we want to go after. This is who's willing to pay, and both in terms of validation, but also then in terms of subsequently deals.
got it. And so during that time, that 4.5 years, like, are you guys full time on this? Are you guys still working your day jobs? Like, what's the story there?
Yeah. So I was part-time for about 6 months. And once we got our first angel investor jumped on board. And Raj has been pretty much full-time, although he still holds a position at Stanford.
Yeah, and I've been sort of quasi full-time. I mean, I think that there is a certain perspective on the clinical side, as well as having a finger on the pulse of the most sort of the bleeding edge of medical evidence, that it behooves us to have sort of active clinical work that I'm doing. Every iteration of the company's product, and as we've started to gain and commercial fit with our customers and our product, it's become more and more evident that I will be moving in full time, probably with our next round of funding, because it's requiring so much of that clinical expertise and the medical vision of the platform, but also making sure our customers are getting what they need. So that's very exciting, and looking forward to sort of supercharging that effort now.
No, that makes sense. And speaking about funding, I think like a lot of our listeners they would love to have, partner with the right co-founder, and then, as they're doing customer discovery, get that angel investment in, and really start growing. So what was that process like to get your first, I guess, round of funding, or your first angel investor?
Yeah, I think we were lucky where we had some network between Raj and my network of folks that knew us in some capacity, and so I think they were the ones who kind of took a chance at us. I think because this is such an important societal problem, I think there's some more flexibility in not being as commercial as early, so kind of funded our effort for discovering this, and we're very grateful for those investors who put trust in us when there was very little data to support that. And I think every funding round, the goals increase, right? And so I think it's good to have investors who are aligned with the vision and aligned with what you want to accomplish, and hopefully are able to help you accomplish that vision and take that vision into execution.
Cool. No, that's awesome. Let's talk about the product now. Healthpals, we dove into it a little bit, but what are the key problems that you're solving for today? And yeah, I mean, let's talk about the product.
So when we think about looking at real world clinical data, we're talking about electronic health record data, we're talking about claims records, we're even talking about the wearable and genomic industries, and sort of how they're contributing to how we understand patients and clinical outcomes. But no one has really organized those clinical outcomes primarily because health record data and claims data is incredibly messy and not very usable. When you want to find something in your own health system's health records about your patients, you really can't do it. EHRs are sort of storing the information, but they're not organizing it in a usable way for patient care. And if you talk to anyone who uses EHRs, they know that they were built for billing and not for patient care in most cases. And so what we are doing at Healthpals is similar to what was done for the world's information by Google, for the financial information of the world by Bloomberg. We're organizing the world's clinical outcome information with a platform we call Clint, or Clinical Intelligence, that is able to do two things. One, it is able to take that clinical data that is very raw and messy and create context to all those elements of the data about a patient, so that it's actually high quality on the other end. That we can actually feed that into the other piece of our engine, which is the world's first machine readable guideline engine, where we've actually codified the medical evidence of whatever clinical specialty we are dealing with, and can then leverage this higher quality data set that we've transformed to make it high quality into actionable recommendations on the other end through our guideline engine. And so that core functionality powers value for virtually every stakeholder in healthcare, whether you're a patient or a provider, whether you're a life science company, or whether you're a payer, or whether you're a retail health system. That is something that is really powerful for your business as well as your clinical outcomes.
Sushant, anything to add?
No, I think Raj summed it up. I think as you can see, the platform is pretty generalized. And so we think of it as a platform to support multiple products. And so our first market is really focused on biopharma or life science companies. Clint Trials is the name of the product because you need to build something that's integrated into the workflow of the customer. And so for biopharma, we're able to help accelerate their clinical trial and make it better. And so we're able to save them time and cost, as well as target the right drug to the right patients, drug or medical device or whatnot, more effectively. The good thing is that Clint, the platform, Clinical Intelligence, is able to support, is a foundation for future products for payers, for retail health, and the other ones that Raj was mentioning.
Got it. So the way that I understand it is you're taking all of this raw data that exists that is not being made sense of, you're making sense of it, then adding this layer of, actual, proven medical guidelines, and combining that to be able to provide insights, actionable insights that, that either a payer, a pharma company, or your clinicians, your hospitals, like they can actually use it to make better decisions.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's right. And everything you just mentioned could be done and very valuable at a snapshot and a moment of time. But because we can analyze longitudinal records and understand the patient journey at every stage of their disease evolution, we are, and Sushant really, with his skills on the ML side, that we're building best-in-class risk models of who is going to develop a condition, and not just if they're going to develop it, but when. And if you can predict if and when a clinical event will happen, whether that's a terrible event like death, or whether it's just a progression of their chronic disease, it's incredibly powerful for all of those stakeholders.
Right. So we have this very powerful platform. You guys did a ton of customer discovery. How did you, I think, a lot of our listeners would be curious, like, how did you, I guess, get your first pilot or your first client?
So I think the first pilots and customers largely came out of Raj's network and his position at Stanford, the connections there. And so I think that's why it's been so valuable for Raj to be there. As we look to scale, we can't rely just on that, right? And so we need a great lead gen company. We need the ability to build a sales team that can now start to make it a repeatable business. But I think going from both Raj and I are technical, I mean, different kind of technical, but we definitely had to learn the sales and marketing aspects of it in terms of, in general, as well as specifically for this industry, And so really I would call customer discovery being over when we got a couple of good pilots and deals, right? That we thought was something that we could really build a product off of. And so, yeah, the transition has also gone slower than we wanted, but I think that that's more of a traditional path, I'll say. The customer discovery just takes as long as it takes. And that was, I think, the timing of that was largely because of the complexity of the market. And that this was the first foray of both our first time building something in healthcare.
All right. So what's the future looking like? Where are we headed?
I think COVID has definitely, we're lucky in that we're in healthcare, but we definitely had to change our strategy given COVID. And actually now we're even working with the FDA with some COVID related projects. And we just did our first publication with them that came out. But yeah, it's changed our strategy, but in some ways we're better than we were going into COVID. Of course, it's a terrible condition, but I think there's it's accelerated some market trends that helps us, and including in clinical trials and more appetite for innovation there. So we're looking to really ramp up and make this something that's repeatable and get more long-term customers.
So from this entire journey that you've been on for the last several years, it seems like, what is one piece of advice that you would give to our listeners who are hoping to either start on the same journey or might be at an earlier stage in the same journey?
Yeah, I think that there are so many needs in medical care that data and analytics could solve, but the key learning I think we've had over the last several years is that there is a really desperate sort of craving for standardization within the field so that we can raise the level of care for all patients. And if you have an idea in healthcare about achieving that goal, I think there's quite a receptive audience, and your innovation could have a lot of soft landings with customers, because I think they're really interested if you can provide that solution at this time.
Awesome. I love it. Raj?
Yeah, I think focus and having a plan, even if it's not the best plan, and execute just on that plan, and adjust as you need. And I think, I think that would have definitely helped us more. I mean, it's definitely easy to get common wisdom. It's another thing to actually act it. And so I think you had to do a fair bit of exploration, but you also just have to focus, pick a strategy, execute on it. You might have to change the path, but I think that will just really help you and keep you looking at the next step forward.
Awesome. Amazing. Thank you so much, guys, for joining me here on this show today. Where can our listeners find and connect with you?
Thank you, Shaheem, for having us. It was a great conversation. They can find us on healthpals.ai. That's our website, and also our LinkedIn. Feel free to reach out to us.
And foundermatchmaker.com or something like that.
We've taken our profile down.
I'm just kidding. Yeah. Sounds good. No, thank you so much, guys. This is great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Don't forget to follow this podcast for regular SaaS stories and updates on new cutting-edge technology. If you enjoyed the show, please share this podcast with your colleagues. We also have a Slack community made just for tech founders, leaders, and investors called What the SaaS, where we provide resources, networking, funding opportunities, and more. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.